Andretti has been told they will not be allowed to take part in Formula 1. We've all known for a while that Andretti have been wanting to take part in Formula 1 and get a seat amongst the rest of the teams in the sport. They've taken over IndyCar, they've taken over Formula E, as well as many other various motorsports. But F1 has always been something that they haven't been able to get themselves into, apart from, of course, Mario Andretti being a Formula 1 world champion. But today it's been officially announced by Formula 1 that they will not be allowed to take part. There's a big statement from Formula 1, so we're just going to break that down, read through it, and basically tell you what this all means. And to outline it, it means that Andretti have been told, no, you cannot take part in Formula 1 for 2025. But there is good news. The door is still slightly ajar for another application in 2028. However, from reading all of this, it feels like potentially that door is only slightly open to offer them a chance again, whereas it will probably just be closed anyway. The first statement that they say in conclusion is that they do not believe that an 11th team would add any value to the championship because they want that team to come in and be competitive, and they see that as the only reason why a team coming in would be an asset for Formula 1, which I just completely disagree. Formula 1 fans, if you ask most Formula 1 fans across social media, they're always asking for more teams, more drivers, and more action on the racetrack. We already talk about it so many times, Formula 2 champions being dismissed and told, no, you cannot have a seat in Formula 1 next year, you've got to go and take a seat out or go do other series. You look at the likes of Felipe Drugovich, a reserve driver for Aston Martin, an F2 champion, but has no seat, nowhere to go to. Theo Porcher has just won the F2 championship, but has nowhere to go. There's nowhere for him because there's no seats available. So we're always asking for more seats, more drivers. To then say this and say that an 11th team would not bring value just feels like, as a fan, we're not listened to. Now, I understand the non-competitive aspect. You look through history of Formula 1, and in recent history, Haas, for example, came in 2016. Have they been competitive? In some essence, yes. They haven't fought for podiums or for race wins. They've got a pole position, but they've been in the midfield and they've been in fights, and they're a huge part of Formula 1 now, I'd say, Haas, especially through Drive, Survive and Gunther Steiner. There's massively helped their profile amongst Formula 1 fans. But there is still a value there bringing Haas in. You go to 2010 and there's an example of them not being competitive and then dropping out of the sport. In 2010, we had Lotus, HRT and Virgin, which all had different name changes throughout. Virgin then changed to Marussia, which then changed to Manor. HRT stayed HRT and then disappeared. So they didn't have a long run. They disappeared after 2012, I think it was. Lotus then turned to Caterham and they dropped out 2014. Manor dropped out in 2016, so all of those teams were completely gone. There's a reason, I guess, for that, saying that they won't be competitive, because they all came in, they were all massively off the pace, they were backmarkers having their own battles in the field, and were only really fighting against each other and trying to get that, 11th, 12th and 10th position in the championship. That's what they were fighting for. So that is a fair point, but I don't think that just having to be a champion or fighting for podiums is being a reason not to come into Formula 1. There's another value there that I think that it brings, that bring in an American audience, for example. Andretti are huge across the motorsport world, and I think bringing them in will definitely allow maybe more American fans to have a team to get behind other than just Haas. You have two teams now that you can root for. Maybe they can bring in an American driver as well, which then gives you another American driver to root for. Formula 1 is already trying to crack America. They've got Las Vegas, they've got Miami, and they've got COTA. Three tracks that are completely different from each other, but you look at the fan base, I think COTA's done really well at getting fans in. Miami is doing okay, it's very expensive, but I'd say the grandstands look fairly full. Vegas, on the other hand, was lucky it was a night race, because if I look at all the pictures from around the weekend, it looked very empty. So America, whilst it has had a big boom through Drive to Survive and all that stuff, I feel like the American fan base is kind of turning off of it a little bit. It's not progressing as much as they would like. So having an American team surely would only benefit that. Looking at what else they say, they also feel like the collaboration between Andretti and General Motors is not one that is an asset for the credibility of them applying for Formula 1. General Motors will not have a power unit straight away. It will be a power unit that Andretti have to get from a different supplier, and they feel like another supplier will not supply them because there will only be a few years that they will be with that engine supplier before General Motors come in and have their own engine. So they feel like a team will basically say, no, we're not giving you an engine because you're going to ditch us in a few years' time. They said it would have been more credible if General Motors came in with a power unit from the start, but have also said that they struggle to see General Motors be competitive straight away, which again, I agree with. They wouldn't be competitive. It is a huge task to produce a power unit. We've seen that with Honda being the most recent one coming in, but you also look at the progress of Honda. 2015, terrible engine. McLaren and Honda were in the mud. But you look at the progress from Honda becoming champions with Max Verstappen and Red Bull in 2021. So that whilst you start off at the bottom, there is progress. And I think allowing that progress should be allowed. We should be allowing the teams to have that progress and build themselves up. They also feel like the Andretti name will benefit more from being in Formula 1 rather than Formula 1 benefiting from the Andretti name. We've already spoken about that. I think it would be both sides. I think Formula 1 will benefit from fans being more engaged, more drivers to root for, more teams to root for, an American audience, potentially bigging up that American audience that they're trying to grow anyway, surely is going to be an asset for Formula 1. They also point out that the operational burden for the race promoters and the circuits is a reason why they do not want an 11th team on the grid, which is confusing to the later point of allowing another application in 2028, because surely those things would still stand. Most of the tracks on the calendar have been on the calendar when we were in 2010, 2011, when we had those other additional teams. So surely those garages should still be there. It's maybe only the newer tracks, maybe the street races, that wouldn't cater for that, which I think is just maybe a bit silly on Formula 1's part when they're talking to these racetracks and getting them into the sport, that they wouldn't allow for maybe a little bit of leeway of additional pit garages later on down the line if they wanted to add more teams. There was also a little bit of sassiness in there by pointing out that Andretti were looking to make a car in 2025, bin that off, and then make a brand new car in 2026 for obviously the new power unit and regulation changes that we're going to get in that era of Formula 1. It's a bit kind of like, you guys don't actually understand the scale of Formula 1, that you think you're just going to build a car for 1 year, throw it in the bin, and then come back the year after with a brand new car. They're like, do you realize how difficult that is in Formula 1? So that's one of the reasons, again, why they do not want Andretti in the sport. But again, they are opening that door for 2028. So it just seems confusing to me. It's basically shutting out a team, and it kind of asks that question, what does a team have to do in the future to get in the sport? Are we only ever going to have 10 teams? Do we have to wait for a team to drop out to then allow another team in? Which is ridiculous to me. As a Formula 1 fan, I'm amongst the people who believe that more cars and more drivers on the grid is only going to make things more entertaining. I want to see those drivers have a chance. I want to see, an F2 champion be able to go into a seat straight away, but also keep those established drivers that we have on the grid who, have a rightful place to their seat as well. But what do you think? Let me know in the comment section down below. Do you believe that Andretti have been hard done by and not allowed into Formula 1? Or do you think it's a fair decision by Formula 1 and it makes complete sense to you? Make sure you subscribe to the WTF1 channel, and we'll see you on the next one.